Sienna God, hello all. Oshisahiya, good evening. Wado, thank you for watching. So this is day 20, part A of reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, an Inquiry into Values by Robert M. Pirsig. So, where we left off was, if you just stop and put tools away neatly, you will both find the tool and also scale down your impatience without wasting time or endangering the work. I mean, like, duh, right? Just take the time. You'll thank yourself later. Kind of like when you know that you're going to be kind of pressed for time. And so rather than do everything that you normally do and then try and go to sleep early, you do everything that you normally do, but you also lay out your clothes for tomorrow. You do whatever it is, right? And you know the thing that's coming up anyway. Go ahead and take a little bit of each day to prep for it, and then you won't be running around like a chicken with your head cut off. There's less chance of you forgetting something. You know what I mean? Have like a little checklist going, whatever it is. It's like the little things. It's like self-care, Anyway, we're pulling into Dayville, and my rear end feels like it's turned to concrete. Well, that about does it for value traps, There's a whole lot more of them, of course. I've really only just touched on the subject to show what's there. Almost any mechanic could fill you in for hours on value traps he's discovered that I don't know anything about. You're bound to discover plenty of them for yourself on almost every job. Perhaps the best single thing to learn is to recognize a value trap when you're in it and work on that before you continue on the machine. Dayville has huge shade trees by the filling station where we wait for the attendant to appear. None does. And we, being stiff and uneager to get back on the cycle, do leg exercises under the shade of the trees. Big trees that almost completely cover the road. Odd in this desert-like country. The attendant still doesn't show, but his competitor at the filling station across the narrow intersection is watching this and soon comes over to fill the tank. I don't know where John is, he says. When John appears, he thanks the other attendant and says proudly, "We always help each other out like this." I ask him if there's a place to rest, and he says, "You can use my front lawn." You know what the difference is? That he went over there and pumped the fuel over at old dude's station instead of like waving those guys over and taking the customer from him. You know what I mean? That's real people right there. I ask him if there's a place to rest, and he says, "You can use my front lawn." He points across the main road to his house behind some cottonwood trees that must be 3 to 4 feet in diameter. Oh, dang. We do this, stretch out on some long green grass, and I see that the grass and trees are irrigated from a ditch by the road that has clear moving water in it. We must have slept half an hour when we see John in his rocking chair on the green grass beside us, talking to a fire warden in another chair. I listen. The conversation's pace intrigues me. It isn't intended to go anywhere, just fill the time of day. I haven't heard steady, slow-paced conversation like that since the 30s, when my grandfather and great-grandfather and uncles and great-uncles used to talk like that. On and on and on with no point or purpose other than to fill time, like the rocking of a chair. John sees I'm awake and we talk a little. He says the irrigation water comes from the Chinaman's ditch. You never could get a white man to dig a ditch like that, he says. They dug that ditch 80 years ago when they thought there was gold here. You couldn't get a ditch like that anywhere nowadays. He says that's why the trees are so big. We talk some about where we're from and where we're going. And when we leave, John says he's happy to have met us and hopes we're rested. As we move off under the big trees, Chris waves and he smiles and waves back. The desert road winds through rocky gorges and hills. This is the driest country yet. I want to talk now about truth traps and muscle traps and then stop this chautauqua for today. Truth traps are concerned with data that are apprehended and are within the boxcars of the train. For the most part, these data are properly handled by conventional dualistic logic and the scientific method talked about earlier, back just after Miles City. But there's one trap that isn't, the truth trap of yes, no logic. All right. Yes and no, this or that, 1 or 0. On the basis of this elementary 2-term discrimination, all human knowledge is built up. The demonstration of this is the computer memory, which stores all its knowledge in the form of binary information. It contains ones and zeros, that's all. Because we're unaccustomed to it, we don't usually see that there's a third possible logical term equal to yes and no, which is capable of expanding our understanding in an unrecognized direction. We don't even have a term for it. So I'll have to use the Japanese mu. Mu. Mu means no thing, like quality. It points outside the process of dualistic discrimination. Mu simply says no class, not one, not zero, not yes, not no. It states that the context of the question is such that a yes or no answer is in error and should not be given. Unask the question is what it says. Mu becomes appropriate when the context of the question becomes too small for the truth of the answer. When the Zen monk Joshu, Joshu, was asked whether a dog had a Buddha nature, he said mu, meaning that if he answered either way, he was answering incorrectly. The Buddha nature cannot be captured by yes or no questions. That mu exists in the natural world investigated by science is evident. It's just that, as usual, we're trained not to see it by our heritage. For example, it's stated over and over again that computer circuits exhibit only two states, a voltage for one and a voltage for two. That's silly. Any computer electronics technician knows otherwise. Try to find a voltage representing 1 or 0 when the power is off. The circuits are in a mu state. They aren't at 1, they aren't at 0. They're in an indeterminate state that has no meaning in terms of ones or zeros. Readings of the voltmeter, will show, in many cases, floating ground, characteristics in which the technician isn't reading the characteristics of the computer circuits at all, but characteristics of the voltmeter itself. What's happened is that the power off condition is part of a context larger than the context in which the 1-0 states are considered universal. The question of 1 or 0 has been unasked. And there are plenty of other computer conditions besides a power of condition in which mu answers are found because of larger context than the 1-0 universality. The dualistic mind tends to think of mu occurrences in nature as a kind of contextual cheating or irrelevance, but mu is found throughout all scientific investigation, and nature doesn't cheat, and nature's answers are never irrelevant. It's a great mistake, a kind of dishonesty, to sweep nature's mu answers under the carpet. Recognition and valuation of these answers would do a lot to bring logical theory closer to experimental practice. Every laboratory scientist knows that very often his experimental results provide mu answers to these yes-no questions the experiments were designed for. In these cases, he considers the experiment poorly designed, chides himself for stupidity, and at best considers the wasted experiment, which has provided the mu answer, to be a kind of wheel spinning, which might help prevent mistakes in the design of future yes-no experiments. This low evaluation of the experiment which provided the mu answer isn't justified. The mu answer is an important one. It's told the scientist that the context of his question is too small for nature's answer, and that he must enlarge the context of the question. That is a very important answer. His understanding of nature is tremendously improved by it, which was the purpose of the experiment in the first place. A very strong case can be made for the statement that science grows by its mu answers and more than by its yes or no answers. Yes or no confirms or denies a hypothesis. Mu says the answer is beyond the hypothesis. Mu is the phenomenon that inspires scientific inquiry in the first place. There's nothing mysterious or esoteric about it. It's just that our culture has warped us to make a low value judgment of it. Yeah, I read that right. I was like, wait a second. In motorcycle maintenance, the mu answer given by the machine to many of the diagnostic questions put to it is a major cause of gumption loss. It shouldn't be. When your answer to a test is indeterminate, it means one of two things: that your test procedures aren't doing what you think they are, or that your understanding of the context of the question needs to be enlarged. Check your test and restudy the question. Don't throw away those mu answers. They're every bit as vital as the yes or no answers. They're more vital. They're the ones you grow on. This motorcycle seems to be running a little hot, but I suppose it's just the hot, dry country we're going through. I'll leave the answer to that in a mu state until it gets worse or better. We stopped for a long chocolate, malted, in the town of Mitchell, nestled in some dry hills that we can see out of the plate glass window. Jeez, the things that they stop and encounter and the terminology that they're using, like it literally reminds me of my pawpaw, my mom's dad, and he would say fill-in station and stuff, and post toasties, and there was something else that he used to say. Anyways, it's just bringing me back. And because he said that something reminded him of like the 30s or something, I thought, like being around the elders in the 30s or whatever. Like, yeah, definitely. Let me see. Dre Hills, we can see out of the place. Oh, some kids on a truck. Some kids come in on a truck and stop, all pile off, and come into the restaurant and sort of dominate it. Yeah, I bet they did. They're reasonably well behaved, just noisy and energetic, but you can see the lady who's running it is a little nervous about them. Dry desert, sandy country again. Into it we go. It's late afternoon now, and we've really covered the miles. I'm getting quite sore from sitting all this time on the cycle. Feeling really tired now. So was Chris back at the restaurant. A little despondent too. I think maybe he, let it go. The Moo expansion is the only thing I want to say about truth traps at this time. Time to switch to the psychomotor traps. This is the domain of understanding which is most directly related to what happens to the machine. Here, by far, the most frustrating gumption trap is inadequate tools. Oh yeah, nothing's quite so demoralizing as a tool hang-up. Buy good tools as you can afford them and you'll never regret it. If you want to save money, don't overlook the newspaper want ads. Good tools, as a rule, don't wear out, and good secondhand tools are much better than inferior new ones. Study the tool catalogs. You can learn a lot from them. Apart from bad tools, bad surroundings are a major gumption trap. Pay attention to adequate lighting. It's amazing the number of mistakes a little light can prevent. Some physical discomfort is unpreventable, but a lot of it, such as that which occurs in surroundings that are too hot or too cold, can throw your evaluations way off if you aren't careful. If you're too cold, for example, you'll hurry and probably make mistakes. If you're too hot, your anger threshold gets much lower. Exactly. As they cook us with the weather, right? Crime rates go up. I don't know. As it gets colder, not really sure if you're aware, but crime rates decrease. Let's see. Avoid out of position work when possible. A small tool on either side of the cycle will increase your patience greatly, and you'll be much less likely to damage the assemblies you're working on. There's one psychomotor gumption trap, muscular insensitivity, which accounts for some real damage. It results in part from lack of kinesthesia, a failure to realize that although the externals of a cycle are rugged, inside the engine are delicate precision parts, which can be easily damaged by muscular insensitivity. There's what's called mechanics feel, which is very obvious to those who know what it is, but hard to describe to those who don't. And when you see someone working on a machine who doesn't have it, you tend to suffer with the machine. The mechanics feel comes from a deep inner kinesthetic feeling for the elasticity of materials. Some materials, like ceramics, have very little, so that when you thread a porcelain fitting, you're very careful not to apply great pressures. Other materials, like steel, have tremendous elasticity, more than rubber, but in a range in which, unless you're working with large mechanical forces, the elasticity isn't apparent. With nuts and bolts, you're in the range of large mechanical forces, and you should understand that within these ranges, metals are elastic. When you take up a nut, there's a point called finger tight, where there's contact, but no take-up of elasticity. Then there's snug, in which the easy surface elasticity is taken up. Then there's a range called tight, in which all the elasticity is taken up. The force required to reach these 3 points is different for each size of nut and bolt, and different for lubricated bolts and for lock nuts. The forces are different for steel and cast iron and brass and aluminum and plastics and ceramics. But a person with mechanics feel knows when something's tight and stops. A person without it goes right on past and strips the threads or breaks the assembly. A mechanic's feel implies not only an understanding for elasticity of metal, but for its softness. The insides of a motorcycle contain surfaces that are precise in some cases to as little as 1/10,000th of an inch. If you drop them or get dirt on them or scratch them or bang them with a hammer, they'll lose that precision. It's important to understand that the metal behind the surfaces can normally take great shock and stress, but that the surfaces themselves cannot. When handling precision parts that are stuck or difficult to manipulate, a person with mechanics feel will avoid damaging the surfaces and work with his tools on the non-precision surfaces of the same part whenever possible. If he must work on the surfaces themselves, he'll always use softer surfaces to work them with. Brass hammers, plastic hammers, wood hammers, rubber hammers, and lead hammers are all available for this work. Use them. Vice jaws can be fitted with plastic and copper and lead faces. Use these too. Handle precision parts gently. You'll never be sorry. If you have a tendency to bang things around, take more time and try to develop a little more respect for the accomplishment that a precision part represents. Now, remember I told you, this book is not about motorcycles, right? Like, you literally can apply all of this to your normal everyday life, special projects, whatever it is. It's telling you to go the extra step, the extra mile, because you won't regret it, and it will help you, not hinder you, in whatever it is that you're doing. And don't hype yourself up about it, right? Take it one step at a time, and remember that you're learning, or you are doing something that is familiar, but don't take it for granted, because you can still mess that up, right? Because you can put too much pressure on yourself, your anxiety, the environment being too hot, too cold, right? Or not laying your tools out properly, or whatever it is, right? So use it in your everyday life, no matter how big or how small the task or project is, or how packed the day is, or how light the day is, right? You have to plan it out. And if things don't go the way that you want, that is okay. Pivot, learn from it, right? And then move on. Anyway, low angled shadows in the dry country we've been through have left a kind of blue depressed feeling. Maybe it's just the usual late afternoon letdown, but after all I've said about all these things today, I just have a feeling that I've somehow talked around the point. Some could ask, well, if I get around all those gumption traps, then will I have the thing licked? The answer, of course, is no. You still haven't got anything licked. You've got to live right too. Oh, yes. It's the way you live that predisposes you to avoid the traps and see the right facts. You want to know how to paint a perfect painting. It's easy. Make yourself perfect and then just paint naturally. That's the way all experts do it. The making of a painting or the fixing of a motorcycle isn't separate from the rest of your existence. I just literally said that. Oh my gosh. If you're a sloppy thinker, the 6 days of the week you aren't working on your machine, what trap avoidances, what gimmicks can make you all of a sudden sharp on the 7th? Exactly, right? It all goes together. Yes. But if you're a sloppy thinker 6 days a week and you really try to be sharp on the 7th, then maybe the next 6 days aren't going to be quite as sloppy as the preceding 6. What I'm trying to come up with on these gumption traps, I guess, is shortcuts to living right. The real cycle you're working on is a cycle called yourself. The machine that appears to be out there and the person that appears to be in here are not two separate things. They grow toward quality or fall away from quality altogether. We arrive in Prineville Junction with only a few hours of daylight left. We're at the intersection with Highway 97, where we'll turn south, and I fill up the tank at the corner, and then Jeepers. I'm like, oh, it's fixing to be like a minute left. I gotta hurry up and finish. Anyway, I'm so tired. I go around and back and sit on the yellow painted cement curb with my feet in the gravel and the last rays of the sun flaring through the trees into my eyes. Chris comes and sits down too, and we don't say anything. But this is the worst depression yet. All that talk about gumption traps, and I fall right into one myself. Fatigue, maybe. We've got to get some sleep. I watch the cars go by for a while on the highway. Something lonely about them. Not lonely. Worse. Nothing like the attendant's expression when he filled the tank. Nothing. A nothing curb by some nothing gravel at a nothing intersection going nowhere. Something about the car drivers too. They look just like the gasoline attendant, staring straight ahead in some private trance of their own. All right, don't go hang again. You in a good chance. Tell me again. Love you, mean it.